Fallacies of language. 1A. Equivocation. Equivocation is the simplest and most common of all material fallacies. It means simply that the same term is used in two or more different senses in the course of an argument. Fallacies, in the logical sense, occur only in arguments. In ordinary language, the word fallacy is often used for any kind of mistake, but in logic, a fallacy is a mistake in argument. Almost any terms except numbers have the potential to be used equivocally, but no term is equivocal in itself. A term is only used equivocally. This happens when it changes its meaning in the course of an argument. Concepts are not equivocal, only terms. That is, the words that express them. To have a concept in your mind is to know what it means. If your mind holds two meanings, it holds two concepts, not one. The disease of equivocation is in the term, not the concept. When two people use the same word in two different senses, they are said to be quibbling over the term. We remove the quibble by exposing the double identity of the term. That is, by showing how the same term, word or phrase, expresses two different concepts. To expose the equivocation or double identity of the equivocal term, use these two steps. Number 1, first identify the word or phrase that shifts its meaning. 2, then identify the two different meanings by using two different words or phrases. The golden rule here is to unmake an ambiguity, make a distinction. A term used analogically, a term used metaphorically, or a term used vaguely, fuzzily, is not necessarily one used equivocally. Many jokes and all puns depend on equivocation. 1B. Amphiboly, spelled Amphiboly. An amphiboly is not an ambiguous word or phrase, but ambiguous syntax, word, order, or grammatical structure. Simple puns are based on equivocation. Slightly longer language jokes are usually based on amphiboly. For example, what word is pronounced incorrectly by nearly all English people? Answer, the word incorrectly. An example of amphiboly that is not a joke, just an ambiguity. Aristotle, the Peripathic, Peripatetic, that is, the walker, taught his students walking. There are two ambiguities here. First, who was walking, Aristotle or his students? Second, did he teach them the art of walking, or did he teach them something else while he was walking? Most of Jay Leno's headlines are examples of amphiboly. 1C. Accent. Here the ambiguity comes from the voice inflection, ironic or sarcastic tone, or even the facial expression or innuendo. If you don't know what an innuendo means, look it up. Every literate person should have and more importantly use a dictionary. Accent and amphiboly are the two fallacies that are almost always humorous, usually ironic, and often sarcastic. 1D. Slanting. Slanting is sometimes called the fallacy of the question-begging epithet because it is really a form of begging the question. Fallacy D3. In a single word, begging the question means assuming what you're supposed to prove, and the use of slanted language begs the question by telling you whether to dislike or like the word, the thing the word describes. Instead of proving that the thing it describes is good or bad, it assumes its value or disvalue in the very description of it. For example, calling an idea enlightened or wild or traditional or stagnant or flexible or fickle. This is an equivocation or double meaning because it both describes and evaluates at once in a single word. It both denotes a fact and connotes an evaluating attitude toward the fact. That is why it is classified under the heading of fallacies of equivocation. The most obvious and egregious examples of slanting are in propaganda, which has been defined by famous punster as the proper mate for a proper goose. 1E. Slogans. There is no fallacy in a slogan as such, but in its use as a substitute for an argument. For example, I'm pro-life. Why? Because of the bumper sticker. A child, not a choice. Well, I'm pro-choice. Why? Because of that bumper sticker. Every woman's right to choose. Or, why are you voting for the incumbent? You know the saying, don't change horses in the middle of the stream. And if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Why are you voting for his opponent? Because I believe in progress. I'm a progressive. Almost any expression can become a slogan when it is used to produce a thoughtless, knee-jerk reaction of an agreement or disagreement simply on the basis of a familiarity of words rather than on the basis of reason. The words function like the logo of the local football team. 1F, hyperbole. Hyperbole means exaggeration or hyperbole. This is routinely done by media hype. For instance, note every occurrence of the word crisis in your daily newspaper. How many are really crises and how many are only a tempest in a teapot? Do the same with the word shocking. Surely it is highly ironic that this word is used more and more as Americans find less and less to be shocked at. An absurd extension must be distinguished from the legitimate form or argument called reduction to absurdity or reductio ad absurdum, which consists in proving that if you accept a certain proposition as a premise, that premise necessarily leads to a conclusion which is absurd, that is, one which everybody knows is false, and therefore the premise cannot be accepted. 1G, straw man. The straw man fallacy consists in refuting an unfairly weak, stupid, or ridiculous version of the opponent's idea, either his conclusion or his argument, instead of the more reasonable idea he actually holds. You first set up a straw man or scarecrow, then knock it down, since a straw man is easy to knock down. One of the rules of the medieval debate was designed to block straw man arguments. You must first state your opponent's idea in your own words to be sure you understand the idea instead of just parroting the words to his satisfaction before you go on to refute it. Even great philosophers often fall into straw man fallacy. For example, the optimist may refute the pessimist by noting that not everything is bad, and the pessimist may refute the optimist by noting not everything is good.